The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 46. The Midrim. Before I discuss the war-torn Midrim in particular, it is necessary to note the unique features of the cluster of domains known as the Stellar Archipelago. The constituent domains of most clusters are linked more tightly to one another than to the world as a whole. It is a relatively easy thing to travel from Sanguinia to Vorostikov to Arendelle, and a far more delicate matter to travel from any of those frozen lands to, say, Barovia. The nature of the Stellar Archipelago is so radically different that I hesitate to call it a cluster at all. On the one hand, the realms within have a shared history and culture, much more so than any other cluster I have seen, and I had the sense that, had the mists ever lifted, they would be geographically connected as well. Sailing from an island in the Midrim to an island in the Outer Rim, for instance, would have been a simple matter if the borders had been clear. The mists, however, are the key to the unusual character of the cluster. It is slightly more challenging than usual to journey between the Stellar Archipelago and domains beyond it, but it is almost impossible to travel from one of its regions to another. The mistways are treacherous, either leading directly back into the domain from which one came, or depositing one in the Sea of Sorrows, or Davy Jones' Locker, or some other ocean. Nor can one simply avoid the issue by traveling from, say, the Midrim to the Locker to the Outer Rim. Those who attempt this often find that the capricious mists simply return them to the region they originally left. Only a handful of skillful and daring smugglers and pirates have managed to chart the dangerous mistways between the regions, and they guard those paths jealously. My own guide suspects that the Imperium, which I will detail in a later report, would prevent such travel if they became aware of it, making these paths some of the most privileged information in the cluster. For that reason, in order to complete my survey, I managed with some difficulty to locate and join a crew of thieves whose current scheme would take them throughout the archipelago. This did, unfortunately, involve aiding them in their criminal endeavors, but the price that they demanded to be a mere passenger aboard the Archangel was one that I believe even my patron would have found eye-watering, and Dr. Afra's knowledge of the Mistways was a rare enough commodity that I had no room to haggle. With those arrangements made, I set out to study the Midrim, where for time out of mind a brutal civil war has spread like fire across the archipelago.
Welcome to wonderful, 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 wonderful world of Darklord. I'm Tom.
And I am Rachel.
And we're discussing how to convert Disney movies to Ravenloft Domains of Dread. Woo! And today we get our second crack at Christopher Lee.
Yes, this is the only thing to get Tom excited enough to sing on mic.
Yes!
It's Star Wars. Along the way, we'll look at the Darklord, the domain itself, and some plot hooks and adaptation ideas to integrate this setting into your own campaign.
Today's episode, Count Dooku.
Yeah, because like with Thanos, we know you guys are here for the Darklords on this one, guys. So, you know, like, it's Star Wars, it's all Star Wars, there are some different eras of Star Wars, but really you're here to hear about Count Dooku well, you're probably not here to hear about Count Dooku as a Darklord, but you're going to hear about Darth Vader as a Darklord, and some of our other guys.
If you did not listen to our May the 4th prologue, I really recommend you go back and listen to that, because that is where we lay out a lot of what we're planning to do for our extra mega-sized Star Wars season, because Star Wars is not only this month, May, for May the 4th, it will also going to be our summer series, so it's a 4-part, 4-episode, 4-domain Star Wars season.
Yes.
And real quick run-through, in case you didn't listen to me and haven't listened to the prologue yet. Each of these points we go through in much more detail in the prologue, but this is basically what we're establishing with the shared world of each of these 4 domains. Number 1, it is not going to be in space. I could make it Spelljammer easily if you want to, but our default canon setting is a giant archipelago of thousands of islands, basically at a, like, steampunk Magitech Eberron level of technology.
Yeah, think Atlantis the Lost Empire is pretty good to go.
So they're not wooden sailing ships. They are airships or steam-powered boats or mini-subs or some version of that. Second, Palpatine is not going to be a Dark Lord of any of our domains, and that's because he does not really have a torment. He is living his best evil life, shooting lightning and cackling.
And doing evil head turns.
So we decided that instead we're going to have it be that he is the source, the fountainhead of our Star Wars Dark Lords. So in our canon, he is an archdevil. he is either a manifestation of the dark powers or is working for the dark powers in Ravenloft terms.
Or is just kind of doing his own thing and the dark powers are using him to do it because it's more fun that way.
And he is there to tempt and corrupt people, and all of our Dark Lords, our 4 in our series, are going to people corrupted by Palpatine. And speaking of people corrupted by Palpatine, we are having, just for simplicity's sake, both the Sith and the Imperial Inquisitors. They are infernal warlocks of Palpatine.
Of Palpatine.
Speaking of the Sith, the Jedi, we are not doing a whole new system, because that's what it would be to model the Jedi or the Force. I think you'd basically need a new magic system, almost a new class.
Binks has the Zoomies. If you've listened to any episodes of Alice in Wonderland, then you know the struggles we're facing. Sorry, guys.
Instead, we are having our version of the Jedi be just this order of holy warriors that mechanically are going to be represented by paladins and clerics. The idea that they're not like separate things, that's just Jedi with different specialties. A paladin, a forge cleric, a life cleric, a trickster domain cleric, they're all Jedi, and they just have different specialties in training and skills. And then finally, and this was a real job of work, the archipelago is divided into regions. Each region is one of our domains, and each of those regions, each of those domains is a kind of a different political setup that map to a different point on the Star Wars timeline.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that too much for this one, because this is our first one, so all you need to know is Clone Wars. Next month, things get more complicated.
Also, we are trying to do each in order to differentiate them, so it's not just the 4 thing with different evil guys with red lightsabers. Each of these domains, we are trying to not only have it be kind of equivalent to a different point on the Star Wars timeline, but also a different kind of genre of stories you might tell from that great melting pot of pop culture genre storytelling that is Star Wars. So, standard disclaimer out of the way, we can now talk about this specific region of the archipelago and this particular domain. And this is, in the whole archipelago, we are calling this region the Mid-Rim. And in this region, the Mid-Rim, there is this massive world-spanning war going on between basically 2 equally matched sides. And you have the Republic, which ruled the entire archipelago before they got pulled into Ravenloft, and then you have the Alliance of Confederated Systems. And in other parts of the archipelago, in other regions, like, for example, Darth Vader, that war has ended. But because of the mist separating these regions, it's still fighting. So basically, the Clone Wars are still happening, full-scale. The one government still called the Republic. It still has Jedi fighting for it. They're just out of contact with the rest of the archipelago. As far as they know, it's still going on in the rest of the archipelago.
Yep.
So, let's talk about the man, the deep-voiced legend, leading that confederacy against the forces of the Jedi and the Republic. Let's talk about our Dark Lord Count Dooku in a section we like to call
The Lord. The Lord. For years, the Artificer War has raged between the Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Islands, and there are none in the Mid-Rim who have been left unscathed. The army of the Republic has found itself cut off from the capital city of Coruscant, although they still receive magical communications from their leader, Chancellor Palpatine. I will detail my suspicions concerning this curious exception to the fractured nature of the archipelago later. The Confederacy, also called the Separatists, has no such trouble, and while any alliance founded upon the individual freedoms of its member states will be somewhat contentious, they have largely united behind a man named Count Dooku, a name which, I am told, is quite dignified in the original Serenian. Dooku was once one of the Jedi, an order of holy warriors unique to the Mid-Rim. These clerics, paladins, and monks are dedicated to maintaining peace and order. Having thoroughly enmeshed themselves in politics and worldly power, they now treat peace and order as synonymous with the Republic, and have become little more than an especially pious police force. This was all well and good when the Republic upheld its lofty ideals. However, as the system inevitably fell to corruption, and the senators became more interested in furthering their own designs than in caring for the people they had sworn to protect, Dooku became disillusioned by the Jedi's roles as the hounds of unscrupulous masters. He defected from both the Order and the Republic, aspiring to create a new government free from their rule. I would have been tempted to place my sympathies firmly with Dooku had I not seen his handiwork and that of his new bedfellows. In order to effectively rebel against the Republic, the Confederacy needed money and other resources. Further, while many of the Separatist islands had legitimate grievances against the Republic, others simply chafed at having any external check on their greed and ambition. The Confederacy, therefore, is largely at the command of its wealthiest and most rapacious member nations. Whatever exploitation the Republic may have visited upon its citizens, the Confederacy has exceeded them. All of this is common knowledge in the Midrim. However, I uncovered an additional piece of information known only to those familiar with the teachings and history of the Jedi. Dooku did not merely defect from the Jedi Order. He embraced an ancient, long-abandoned infernalist path known as the Sith heresy. I did not know at first whether he had simply adopted the precepts of the Sith or actively engaged in infernal bargains. Further investigation, however, made clear the depths to which Dooku has sunk in order to obtain an empty mockery of his goals.
Count Dooku is not as obvious a darklord as a lot of our other choices.
Yes.
And part of it is, I believe I Googled it, in something like 13 and a half minutes of screen time. In cinema. Of course, he has more in the Clone Wars, but in the cinema, in the canon text that most people are familiar with, he's an extremely minor character.
Yeah. And you get, nothing about his motivation. I remember when you were suggesting Count Dooku as a Dark Lord, as it's a deacon, kind of kicking off Star Wars summer. Confession, dear listeners, I mentioned in our May the 4th episode, I really like Star Wars. I would go so far as to say I love Star Wars. I dragged my feet on watching Clone Wars for the longest time because I didn't have, Disney XD or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It was difficult for me to get hold of Clone Wars, and then I resented having to do homework.
Yeah,
I remember at the end of Solo, I just about threw things at the screen because I was like, why is Maul here? I have not watched Clone Wars. Stop making me do homework. So I didn't know much with Dooku.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this is what kind of drives me nuts about portrayal in the movies, is he actually is a really interesting, compelling character, but so little of that is there in the movies.
Even in Clone, because we started watching Clone Wars, so that I would know who the heck Count Dooku was. And, you're like, no, actually, Clone Wars, where he's, the main antagonist, that doesn't help us either. We really have to watch Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah. In Clone Wars, he gets more screen time, but he's sort of oh, yes, I'm evil. Really, the fact that he has the presence he does, I think, is because, once again, the Christopher Lee performance, that, he is magnetic, he is charismatic, he is, incredibly grandiose and sweeping, and I think that did make an impression on a lot of people.
Yes.
And so that's why he's stuck as a character, as, something more than, Newt Gunray or whatever. Yeah. And you did, in the movies, have these, little pieces of backstory that did add up to something really compelling, but they're so little, focused on. They're that's so little not a part of the movie. It's not, foregrounded at all. And so it was really the expanded universe stuff, comics and books, that took that and then really kind of fleshed it out and focused and put a spotlight on it and made, the reader go, like me, for example, oh, wow, this is a really interesting, compelling character. Mm-hmm. And even this is a deeply tragic and relatable character. And then finally, you did kind of have that in multimedia form in the Tales of the Jedi shorts. Mm-hmm. So I was like, there's one thing we have to make sure to watch. We're prepping to do a Count Dooku episode, and that is the Tales of the Jedi shorts.
Yes.
You watch those, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, okay. He is a Dark Lord.
He is a Dark Lord. Yeah, I get it. So, the Tales of the Jedi shorts convinced Rachel... by the way, they're on Disney+. It's a miniseries called Tales of the Jedi. There's 3 of them about Count Dooku. They're 15 minutes each. Highly recommend if you're I kind of want to get a sense of this person as a character.
Mm-hmm. Not just a sneer with a person attached.
Yes. And so those shorts helped convince Rachel that the thing I was really pushing was that we do Count Dooku. And I feel like you were sort of I guess Clone Wars is important, so we can
pretty much, yeah. I guess he would be our Clone Wars Dark Lord.
Right, yeah. And Clone Wars is a big part of setting now, so I guess so. And hopefully the shorts are oh no.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a Dark Lord here. And if you are in any Star Wars circles, you know who Count Dooku is, but you might not know, why the Tales of the Jedi shorts point out he's a darklord, because you might not know what a darklord is. Rachel, what is a darklord?
Well, a darklord is an evil being who commits some kind of act of ultimate darkness that causes the dark powers to say, why, hello, new friend, we want to play with you forever. And so they pluck that evil being up and they place him in a domain which is a special hell tailor-made just for them. There are some really great darklords. There are some really not so great darklords. So we are going to talk about our 4 qualities that separate the Strahd von Zaroviches from the sneers with a person attached, like in Zakolovich.
Love you.
Love you too. So, the first of those 4 qualities is that act of ultimate darkness. They don't just become evil by attrition, they do a specific evil thing that gets the dark powers' attention. And in Strahd's case is that he killed his brother because he wanted to get with his brother's fiancée. Our second element is what they call in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft the Torment, because we're a Disney podcast, we call it they got what they wanted, they lost what they had. In Strahd's case, it's congratulations, your brother's out of the way, you have eternal youth, so you're not too old for Tatiana anymore, but you're too Strahd for Tatiana, and you always will be. Our third element is an element of tragedy and relatability. There's something about them that makes us wince in sympathy, unlike Palpatine, which is why we couldn't make him a Dark Lord. And in Strahd's case, is that unrequited love is just the worst. And then our fourth element is that the domain reflects the Dark Lord and their curse in some way. Strahd is the Dark Lord of spooky gothic vampire land. He is not the Dark Lord of a galaxy far, far away, or a living room in which he's always trying to record, but his cats are always fighting over the scratching post.
Although there is the Strahd must die in space.
That's true.
D&D Beyond Castle Ravenloft as a spaceship.
But even then, I bet it's like a crazy gothic spaceship like the one in Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. And whether it's Barovia or a spaceship, it's a boring mud slump to reflect that curse of loneliness. He's never going to be able to find anyone interesting to be a replacement for Tatiana, even if he wanted to, because he's lonely, and that's the way that our powers like him.
So, once again, if you have not seen those Tales of the Jedi shorts, or if you have not kind of dug into some of the expanded universe stuff, then you're probably like, Count Dooku is none of those things. Mm-hmm. But he actually is.
Yeah.
It's even there in the movies if you know to look for it. But it's not spotlighted or foregrounded at all.
And you really need to look for it.
Yeah, you really need to look for it.
It's kind of buried in the stuff he's saying to Obi-Wan, and you have to know that it's not entirely a line.
Uh-huh.
But, like, it could so easily just be a line. Like, it's frustrating.
So we have a couple of potential acts of ultimate darkness, that you could do if you wanted. He sets up the murder of the incredibly confusingly named Jedi Master Sidious.
I didn't even know that Sidious was a real guy.
Right.
Like, you put this on the outline, and I was like, wait.
That wasn't Darth Sidious?
I thought that was a fake name Darth Sidious used to get a clone.
Because it sure seems like it should be. From the Tales of the Jedi, they kind of give us a really good one, which is, spoiler alert, from this point forward, we're going to assume you watch those. Mm-hmm. We'd spoil the big ending of the third one, which is he murders Yaddle. He murders Lady Yoda from episode 1. Who's not in episode 2, and that's why, because she got murdered by Dooku.
And she, was giving him an opportunity to turn back to the light, and he was like, nah.
And the great thing is, in Star Wars, in the moral cosmos of Star Wars, there's an objective act of ultimate darkness we can bring into a lot of these guys, and that's becoming a Sith. Mm-hmm. And that is kneeling and pledging your loyalty to Darth Sidious.
Yes.
And that oftentimes, one of the most famous examples of that you're probably aware of from the prequel trilogy, that also is connected with some great act of darkness to sort of lock that in.
Yeah.
So in this case, it even is in the episode, that third short is called The Sith Lord. And I think it's the idea that, this is sort of sealing the deal. His murdering Yaddle is this is the moment he truly becomes a Sith. Mm-hmm. And so what our version, the one that we're kind of picking as our canon thing, is something related to that. But it's also a great thing to start our weird alternate Star Wars timeline. Mm-hmm. So he was a Jedi. He was a Jedi Master. He saw the corruption of the Republic that ruled the archipelago. And he saw the Jedi, who were supposed to be these holy warriors, these guardians of peace and justice, are serving the corrupt Senate and are just these kind of blind, hidebound enforcers of a corrupt, rotten status quo. Mm-hmm. And all of this is true. All of this is correct. He was absolutely right about the problems he saw in the sort of quote-unquote galaxy and about the problems he saw in the Jedi Order.
Yeah. If you haven't seen as much of the animated stuff, even following the live action stuff, this is kind of played with a bit with the Acolyte. It's kind of a similar thing. I don't remember her name, not Osha, the other one, but the idea that the Jedi are making some real bad calls that are leading to some innocent people getting hurt.
And so he wanted to change that. And so he wanted to tear down the system. He wanted to have the power to sort of break down the corrupt Republic and to build a new system that legitimately would be a better galaxy. Like, he legitimately wanted to make the galaxy a better place.
That's the best part.
Yes, it's so delicious. And so in our version, like, this is all Star Wars, but in our version, he needs power to do this. He needs power even over other Jedi. So he starts to study the forbidden knowledge in the darkest, most secret parts of the archives of the long-defeated Sith infernalists.
Which is also kind of what happened, right?
Yes.
He was like, I need more power, so I'm going to study the dark side.
Yes,
And Sidious was like, why, hello, new friend. I want to play with you forever.
And here's where it really diverges. So he discovers the way to summon this archdevil, Palpatine, or Sidious, to be his patron. Like, I'll get these warlock levels now on top of my regular, like, paladin levels. I'll get these warlock levels, and that'll be sort of the power I need. So he summons him out of the abyss, out of the nine hells, rather, and now he's a presence in the archipelago. And maybe from the minute he was studying infernalism, Palpatine was reaching out through the void and, like, whispering and manipulating him to this point. So they crafted this plan where Palpatine would take on this, like, false human identity. He would become Supreme Chancellor, and Dooku would take charge of the rest of elements of the Republic, pushing against it, all the people that were already hostile to the Republic, and they would push both of them into a war that would shatter the system and give them both enough power to then remake it. Like, we'll burn the old world down, and then we'll build a new world out of the ashes.
There is nothing wrong with this.
Nothing wrong with it.
This is a perfect plan.
I probably don't even need to super transition into the torment, or they got what they wanted, lost what they had. So he legitimately wanted real reform. He legitimately wanted to make the galaxy a better place, and he legitimately saw clearly the problems that other people in the high levels of the Order and of the Senate refused to see.
He had a genuine grievance, which sounds an awful lot like having a general grievance, which he got later.
And even in this third Tales of the Jedi, Yaddle is saying to him, when she's trying to get him back to the light, she's saying, no, you were right. You were right about the Jedi. You were right about everything. But just, this is not the way.
Yeah.
And
he didn't go chaotic good. He could have gone chaotic good. He didn't.
He manipulated people. He killed people. And even just the thing is, if you want to burn the old order down, you have to burn the old order down.
Yeah.
So you have to, like, accelerate all the problems. So he made everything worse.
He made everything worse.
He wants to drive people away from the Republic. So he, like, empowers some of the, like, richest and most corrupt. Once again, this is kind of part of the Clone Wars and part of this isn't us. This is the prequels that, like, it's there for he wants to make the galaxy a fairer and more just place. But to do that, he has to sort of empower the most corrupt, brutal, exploitive factions. Because then they'll join him. And so he launched this war, killing countless innocent people, making things worse for everyone, losing any chance of convincing the other Jedi that he's right. Like, they're gonna double down so hard now.
Like, that was the thing that was really jumping out at me as we were talking about this, was that, like, one of the things that was really breaking my heart in the third Tales from the Jedi was that he was devastated when Qui-Gon Jinn died, because Qui-Gon Jinn had been his apprentice. And he's like, oh, but we could have won him over, though. And no, you couldn't have. But, like, he wants to win his friends over. He wants his friends, the Jedi, to say, oh my gosh, yes, you were right. Let's go stab Mace Windu in the face, because he is the most lawful purple lightsaber up his butt who ever lived. But now that's never going to happen.
Yeah. And just, he's leading to the deaths of so many of these people that he's ostensibly doing this for. And even we're imagining, like, he's building these huge toxic factories to pump out his warforged armies, which is, I mentioned Eberron, that's another great way to kind of bring in the battle droids, is his side is the ones making the Warforged and like churning out hundreds and just legion after legion after legion of these Warforged armies. I remember you said this.
As we said in our Thanos episode, big Isengard.
Big Isengard.
Just kind of, again, going back to another amazing Christopher Lee villain performance of the 2000s.
The Files of Industry.
Just because thinking about how he has this droid army, or this Warforged army, as the case may be, like he is going to have to do all this industrialization, all this destruction of so much of the beauty of this republic that he's sworn to protect. Just, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's so good, it's so perfect. You know, once again, maybe this is just me, but I love a good destroying the village in order to save it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a guy who is destroying the galaxy in order to save it. And also, I think that another element of that torment, classic sort of demon summoner. He's the summoner and he believes he's the one in control. The devil's serving him. But like on some level, he's got to know. He's got to have that edge of paranoia. This is a twist here. You know, he doesn't call Palpatine like his master. Ostensibly, he is the master. Ostensibly, he is the summoner who called the demon. But, you know, as anyone who has ever heard one of these stories knows who's actually in charge here. Who's actually the master, and is it ever a good idea to summon a demon to, like, do your will?
Yeah. Because we thought this would be a fun direction to take it in, because this is one where no one cares about the Sidious-Dooku relationship, like, at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Palpatine will call him master. But... And on some level, he knows that's true. On some level, he's going to have that little voice in his head saying that, like, you are riding a tiger right now, and you don't get to be the one that decides when the ride ends.
Palpatine will call him master, and will enjoy it all the more when he gets Anakin to chop his head off. He doesn't have to do that anymore.
So, as we said, I barely even need to say the element of tragedy and relatability. I said it's tragic, it's relatable, and it is just the... oh my goodness, the genuine desire for reform, the genuine, like, evil and corruption that he's like, he's absolutely correct about all the problems he's discerned in the Republic and in the Jedi, and he has convinced himself this is the only way, that any sacrifice is worth it. Like, this is, you know, as comes up so much with these guys, sunk cost fallacy is a hell of a drug. Like, in all the killing he did when he's starting on this path, has locked in that any amount of killing is justified to continue on this path, because it's the only way to justify any of what he's done.
Otherwise, it was all for nothing, and he's just a war criminal.
He's just a murderer, yeah. And once again, this core tragedy is there. It's in the canon Star Wars, and it's even there in episode 2 and 3 if you zoom in with an electron microscope on a couple of little bits of dialogue that are not foregrounded at all. Then finally, the domain reflecting the Dark Lord's personality and curse. It's the war, right? Like, he is fighting for peace.
He loves peace so much he'll fight
for it. Yes, he is making the Republic worse for the greater good. He is destroying the village in order to save it. And that's sort of in a war context. That makes a very good kind of guiding ethos for a domain that's defined by war. That this is both sides have this problem of the idea of the greater good, and of sacrificing for the greater good, and of destroying the village in order to save it. And so that is how the domain reflects his kind of inner heart, that the sort of core evil hypocrisy and dishonesty in his heart is the defining ethos of this whole region of the archipelago. So that is our kind of idea of his backstory and what makes him a good Dark Lord. But now let's talk about how to basically run him as a Dark Lord. For stat block, we say stats similar to a cultist hierophant from the 2024 Monster Manual. This is like the much more powerful...
Hierophant or Hierophant?
I don't know.
Cultist elephant.
Cultist elephant. This is the much more powerful version of the sort of cultist stat block. So you've got some magic, you've got a pact blade, which is cool. That fits kind of what we're doing with the lightsabers. You got a couple of good magic spells like Scorching Ray that are a good like Force Lightning equivalent. And the idea he's a pretty high level, that he's a pretty high level fighter. He would be a challenge to go against, for your party to go against him solo. In terms of the special powers that he has as a darklord related to the domain, that he has, if you, whatever warlock levels you want to put on him, we're not once again building a stat block here, but if you want to boost, that's an easy way to boost up, to take that base stat block of the cultist hierophant and make it much more dangerous, is add a bunch of warlock levels.
Oh man, I just realized Palpatine warlocks, their Eldritch Blast do lightning damage.
Yes, they do. Unlimited power.
Unlimited power.
If you join me. So, in terms of this kind of magic level, he is also, on a more practical level, the absolute, basically unquestioned leader of about half the islands of this domain. Of these hundreds of islands in this part of the archipelago, he is the sovereign leader, commander-in-chief of about half of them, including many of the most wealthy and advanced, because once again, he is sided with a lot of the most wealthy and powerful kind of noble houses, corporations, if you're bringing Eberron stuff, kind of the equivalent of dragon-marked houses, and led them in this rebellion against the Republic. And he's got this huge army of Warforged, once again, just basically unlimited supply of Warforged that are programmed to obey him.
Warforged!
Programmed to obey him. Since the war is fake, is a kind of puppet show these two people are putting on, then he has intelligence at the highest level. It's like, he is getting not just all the intelligence coming in from the separatist, like, spy networks and things. Palpatine is feeding him the highest level intelligence of the Republic. But of course, same thing. He is giving Palpatine the highest level intelligence of the Republic. And almost all the battles, the feints, the back and forth are like this show they're planning. And in terms of the power all the Dark Lords have, closing the borders, because maybe your PCs want to go to a more fun Han Solo and less war movie part of the Star Wars land. But if he closes the borders, then going into the mist, an infinite army of Warforged kind of just appears and pushes you back.
Yeah, your classic Grishmallow, endless rats.
So that is Dooku as a sort of stat block, as a mechanical threat. Now let's talk about him as an NPC, how you would roleplay him other than doing your best. Because your voice is deep as it can to do your best, Christopher Lee. And so let's talk about his roleplaying trait, ideal bond and flaw. Now, not quite a Callahan from Big Hero 6 in terms of impossibility.
It's a different challenge than a Callahan, because, like, the movies absolutely would be a Callahan problem.
Yes.
The issue we were having with Dooku was that in order to get good stuff about him, you have to go to the ancillary material.
Yes.
It's just kind of like how much of that to bring in. And then, like, apparently he has some really good quotes in some of the books, but we didn't want to go quite that far.
Frickin' books. Like, no.
I would read the books.
I know, but no. That's ridiculous.
And we don't expect any of you to have read the books. Although, I love you. It's outrageous.
It's outrageous. It's unfair.
So, like, we actually, I don't know if we're going to do this for all of them, but for this episode, we decided to do like we did for Small Screen Summer and pre-prepare the quotes, because we had to go on such a, we went over from Star Wars to Spaceballs. We have the giant combs, and we're combing IMDb for quotes.
Like, we ended up, we've got one we were able to pull from the actual movie of 13 and a half minutes of screen time in the actual movies. And we ended up re-watching the Tales of the Jedi shorts with, like, laptop open to write down the quotes that came up. So, yeah, one of these is not from those shorts.
Shorts have given so much good stuff.
Kind of an excellent illustration of our point about how, like, critical those shorts are to really getting into him as a character.
And even the quotes that we got, one of them wasn't even him. It was Darth Sidious talking to him. But we're like, you know what? He probably internalizes this. He probably says this now all the time.
But here are what we got.
Yes.
So, role-playing trait. This is our one from the actual episode 2. Master Kenobi, you disappoint me. Yoda holds you in such high esteem. Surely you can do better.
It's what an arrogant schmuck.
Yeah. Signature look of superiority. That
Do you need to explain that?
I'm just going to leave it. But he is so arrogant and so disdainful And, like, that is how he will not just want to, like, fight your PCs, he will want to nag them. He will want to belittle them. He'll want to be like, fighting you is kind of a waste of my time.
Oh my gosh, Count Dooku.
And even that Yoda holds you in such high esteem. Like, oh, I really expected better. I'd be like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. So these others are from the Tales of the Jedi shorts. And most of them are from that third one. Yeah. That one that he has is like Fall to the Dark Side. So our ideal, I want only to bring peace and order to the galaxy.
Man alive, I wish all our Dark Lords did this.
Right, yes, I want only, right? How could we do anything but the ideal for a quote that begins with, I want only? And
I want always to be a little boy and have fun.
I want only to bring peace and order to the galaxy. And that is the brilliant tragedy relatability. Mm-hmm. And then we have the bond. The people need someone to fight for them. They have lost faith in the Senate and in us. Because that idea of the people, they've lost faith in all the institutions that are supposed to be kind of on their side and representing them and speaking for them and helping them and making the galaxy a better place for them. And that's kind of, once again, that's what he always tells himself, this is who I'm doing it for. Yes. The people, as this abstract mass concept.
That, like, the bond is kind of to the people and against the Senate and the Jedi.
Yes.
Like, the kind of the two poles of the bond there.
And then, was this the one that was
That was the one that
was
was Palpatine quote.
Palpatine, but we're like, it's so perfect summing up what we want to say. Because we're like, the flaw, like, all this is good. But then the flaw, it has to be, okay, what's the problem? He has such good intentions. Mm-hmm. And he's so correct about what he perceives about the galaxy. What's the flaw? And, like, what has to connect with that arrogance. And it has to connect to, once again, that willingness to destroy the village in order to save it. That willingness to make the galaxy a significantly worse, more violent, more murderous, more corrupt, more polluted place in order to save the galaxy. And so we have, the galaxy will not be remade without sacrifice.
Ugh, perfect flaw. Perfect flaw.
So technically, that's a Palpatine quote from the episode, but, like, that's got to be the thing he tells himself every day. He wakes up and says, the galaxy will not be remade without sacrifice.
He's like, thanks, Palpatine, for giving me that. Good talk. This is why I summoned you.
So, we have talked about running Count Dooku as a NPC, hopefully some things to help roleplay him, to help evoke that deep tragedy that was always there in this character. And now let's talk about the domain, the region of this archipelago that is surrounded by the mist. He is the Darklord of. Let's talk about what we're calling the Mid-Rim, the Clone Wars zone, in a section we like to call
the land. The land. The Mid-Rim is entirely defined by the Artificer War, which takes its name from the soldiers that both sides employ. Make no mistake, there are humanoids in both armies, but the lion's share of their troops were crafted, not born. The Confederacy employs a seemingly endless legion of Warforged, the construction of which has led to more destruction of their land and oppression of their people than the Republic could ever dream of inflicting. There must always be more mines tearing into the bowels of the earth, more foundries belching poisonous smoke into the skies, and more laborers to toil in those mines and foundries, whether they choose to do so or not. The Republic, meanwhile, has employed fleshcrafters from the island of Kamino to make use of the war's most abundant and self-renewing resource: corpses. The Kaminoans are not necromancers. The army of the Republic is composed not of undead, but of reborn, intelligent but programmed for obedience. Only the wealthiest citizens of the Republic can afford the fee to have their dead loved ones buried or cremated instead of shipped to Kamino, and the island's location is a closely guarded secret to prevent the Confederacy from cutting off the army at its knees. Beyond these armies, much of the region is filled with the same horrors of any war, both appalling in their brutality and banal in their similarity to every war that has come before or will come after. Non-combatants are killed, islands are exploited for resources by both their own leaders and the occupying armies that may conquer them, atrocities are committed in the hope that they will end the war and prevent the need for further atrocities. Given the history between Darkon and Falkovnia, I hardly need to elaborate on the nature of such conflict. There is one other unique aspect of this war that I cannot confirm until a future report, but that, if true, is deeply disturbing. One of Afra's crew, a particularly loquacious warforged who kept idly speculating on what it would be like to exsanguinate me, made an offhand reference to Emperor Palpatine. Afra immediately silenced him, reminding him that we don't use that name here. She refused to answer any of my questions about the name and advised me that speaking it in mixed company was an excellent way to find myself at the bottom of the ocean. If Chancellor Palpatine, leader of the Republic, is also the ruler of the Imperium, it suggests that the Jedi and the other soldiers who pledged their loyalty to him are dupes, pawns in some game that they can never hope to understand, with a player who has no concern for their well-being. They believe themselves to be defending a democracy, however corrupt it may be, when in fact they are conquering more lands for a tyrant. This would also explain why Palpatine is the only one who seems able to communicate easily across domains, and why the Imperium controls the Mistways so tightly, for if his despotic designs became common knowledge, the entire army of the Republic would desert overnight.
So then we have the domain itself, and as we said, the whole concept of our Star Wars everything is this giant archipelago. There's a particular region of that archipelago that we call the Mid-Rim, and this is one where the Clone Wars is still raging.
Yes.
And you still have the Confederacy, you still have the Republic, you still have Jedi, they still call Palpatine the Supreme Chancellor and just get the occasional message from him. They're cut off from the rest of it. They kind of assume the war's still going on. This is where you can get that fun, like, Ravenloft timey-wimey of, like, they just don't think too much about the rest of the galaxy. Originally, we mentioned Dooku is kind of our Strahd, in a lot of ways, in terms of his act of darkness.
Despite being not nearly as interesting.
Yes, but his act of darkness is what sort of creates this whole zone, this whole everything. And he's down to the keystone. He summons Palpatine. Originally, the whole archipelago was this war domain that he was the domain lord of. And then other Dark Lords fell and, like, shaved off pieces of it.
That is a thing that has precedence in Ravenloft. Like, if you've heard us talking about death, not like the abstract concept of death, but the Dark Lord death. Yeah, so there was, like, Aslan did some ritual nonsense that, like, caused him to basically just kind of be diffuse a dream matter for a couple of years. And this clone of his, who actually thought that he was in fact Death, was the Dark Lord of Darkon for a while, and then Aslan came back and was the Lord of most of Darkon, but Death got Illaluk, which became Necropolis. So there is precedent for, like, Dark Lords will, like, shave off part of a domain. I can think of a million examples of times that domains absorbed other domains, but, like, for shaving it off, the main one that I can think of is Darkon and Necropolis. I'm sure that Aslan Rex himself knows of at least 8 others.
Yes, but just like with our bizarre metaphysical dream world that touch all places simultaneously, they exist in their own little pocket realms. We only need one. We only need one canon example of this happening to build numerous iterations of.
I guess the House of Lament in Borca.
A canon example. So, we're not going to go through and give you a whole bunch of planets for the Clone Wars, because there's a ton of them, and you can come up with whatever you need.
Yes.
Right? You can go to Wikipedia, you can watch the Clone Wars cartoon, or the great thing is, it's Star Wars, you can just come up with a, like, it's Fargalarg. It's a mountain planet.
Yes.
There you go. It's an ice planet. It's a desert planet. Like, just whatever kind of crazy. It's a rainforest planet. There you go. Rainforest planet. That's a good one. Yeah. We didn't have much of those.
And vis-a-vis locations, like, I know kind of for the prequels, one of our big locations is Coruscant. We're not really imagining that being a thing here, because, again, this is the Mid-Rim. This is where the war's really raging. These are, like, kind of the contested worlds.
Yes.
And also, I feel like part of the horror here is, this idea that the war is raging here and everywhere else it's over.
Yes.
And, like, what's that movie with, like, there's the island, and they're, like, the guy who still thinks it's World War II. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
about. Like, Toshiro Mifune, I think, is in it. Or am I thinking, or am I combining two different
You're
movies?
thinking of, Toshiro Mifune might be in a movie like that. But no, historically, there was, I know at least one guy who was, like, on his little island, Japanese, who kind of thought the war was still going, until, like, the late 50s or early 60s. And so, yes, that this is that idea of, like, that core horror of, yeah, they think the war's still going, but it's basically over.
Yeah.
And, like, every battle they're having is kind of for nothing. It's all futile. Everywhere else in the archipelago, the Confederacy's lost. And the Republic has become the Empire, taken over. But here's this one region cut off from the others almost entirely by mist. You still have Jedi fighting.
Yes. They think there's a Jedi temple out there.
They think there's a Jedi temple on Coruscant. Yes. And they think there's a Jedi council. And they just lost contact with them.
Yes.
And they're just trying to fight their battles. And they're like, oh, we'll win. And then we'll reestablish contact somehow.
Yeah. So, like, if you want to have there be timey-wimey stuff, and we are going to talk about that in later episodes, if you want there to be timey-wimey stuff, but there's also a Coruscant in this domain.
Yes.
Like, if you feel like you cannot do the Clone Wars without Coruscant, God bless, have fun. That's not going to be our canon version, though, because that is just such appalling, just the gears of war keeping on mindlessly grinding.
Yeah. As we said in our May the 4th intro, we're not just giving locations. Our key focus here is like on like factions and important characters. And this is a war, and we have our two sides. And we have the Confederacy, and the great thing is that's, I can use that for the write-up too, the Confederacy.
Yes.
And this is about half the islands, and it tends to be the richest and the most advanced. This is these hyper-industrialized, it's a big Isengard energy, the fires of industry, the great war machine, and they've converted a lot of these islands into just pieces of this great war machine. They are cranking out Warforged. There is destruction, there is pollution, there is oppression, but many of the islands that joined the Confederacy did so totally legitimately because they were legitimately wronged by the Republic.
Yeah.
And they were exploited by the Republic, or they were neglected by the Republic, and they have a real patriotism. Like, they're not just like, we are the Trade Federation. We are doing this for money. Like, no,
we are not going to do impressions of the Trade Federation because holy potatoes, George Lucas.
But, like...
I'm going to have the Trade Federation speak with Southern accents.
Hey, what do you know? I'll do Watto. He's safe. Sort of an Italian merchant, junk dealer kind of thing. But so, like, this is not just greedy people and battle droids. This is, like, people who legitimately are fighting for a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, and that's cool, and there's a lot of potential there. And then you have about an other half. You have the Republic, what's left of it. You have the Jedi as the generals. You have Palpatine as the Chancellor. He can communicate with them sometimes. And, they don't know anything. Nothing bad happened around Coruscant, the Jedi Temple. They just haven't been able to. Communication's tricky. And, Dooku.
The Mists are gonna miss.
The Mists are gonna miss. What are you gonna do? And Dooku also, Palpatine can communicate with him. So he thinks, like, also everything's going fine in the other parts of the archipelago.
Yeah, Confederacy stories and all.
This is all their grand plan is still unfolding. And some point, they'll do this masterstroke where they'll bring the Republic to its knees and reforge the galaxy in a new, better world with the Sith as rulers.
Yeah.
And so this war is going on, and it is the never-ending war, and I love the Ravenloft timey-wimey. No one can quite remember how long it's been going on, but it's just the war.
And even if you're a grognard and you're not big on the wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey like Groundhog Day thing, there is absolute precedent for this because there were the false histories of the domains.
Yes.
And there even was the whole thing with, there were the Borca and Dorvinia were the two domains that eventually combined to form Old Borca with Ivan was the Lord of Borca and Ivan was the Lord of Dorvinia, and they had completely contradictory histories because they each had their false histories and they didn't line up with each other. So this, even if you're a grognard, you can make this work.
Now, there is obviously Warforged are a great analog for the battle droids. And they kind of even had that purpose in Eberron setting, and I'm starting to feel my way toward like an Eberron Clone Wars thing, TBD. Check back at this space later. Like, as of recording, I'm not there yet. I'm starting to feel the edges of it in the darkness.
Future Tom might pop in with an Eberron in it.
So then we also have the clones. And how do we do that? And at first, we were like, I remember you went and looked up the clone spell. Like, anything like that, to be obvious, clone. There is a clone thing in Dungeons & Dragons canon. But then I think we
did
hit
not work at all,
on a very good idea.
Yes.
Which is the clone army are all Reborns.
Yes!
That's right. They are kind of flesh golems. They are an army of Frankensteins.
They are an army of Frankensteins.
Army of Frankensteins. This is monster. Don't at us. And...
Palpatine's monster.
So this is one location we're going to give you, Camino, and that's a very Lomordia influence. They're all about the biology and the alchemy and the constructing flesh golems and all of that. And they've built these giant, flesh factories that they're just harvesting body parts, growing body parts in vats, and constructing them into these perfect soldiers that they download the memory and training and obedience programming of this particular template they're using. And maybe even a really grisly thing where after the battles they'll be the agents of the Republic of Camino that come in and harvest the dead to be recycled.
Oh, heck yeah. It'll be like that scene in the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein where they're going through the battlefield.
Exactly.
Yeah,
checking and harvesting them. And so once again, big Isengard energy. We keep coming back to that.
Yes.
Big, Uruk-hai ripping out of the weird, gooey egg things.
Yes.
Who do you serve? Palpatine.
Absolutely. Just the idea that it's just this meat grinder and everyone and everything is just a cog in service to the war engine.
Yeah. It's so good. And once again, I hope you can see it's through this that we can start to get to the horror of the setting. Because we had that May the 4th, where's the horror? And we can, by making this the ultimate war, by making this the domain of war and all of the horror and hell of war, we can make it a horror setting.
Yes. Now, I'm going to actually, this is live.
Hi, baby.
Because we're talking about factions and NPCs and things. And there is a very important NPC that I name-dropped earlier, but that we don't have anything about how to do here. How would you do General Grievous in D&D terms? Weird, cyborg with organs.
Weird cyborg with organs. In a stat block wise, you could just do a super powerful Warforged. Honestly, I don't have a lot of specifics at hand, but I know there's a significant Eberron NPC called the Lord of Blades, who is a Warforged trying to build kind of a Warforged nation and kind of bring Warforged together in the waste and hates the fleshies or whatever. So I think probably if there's a stat block for the Lord of Blades, and I think there is either in the book or in the Adventures League setting, I think that would be a good stat block to use. And it would even be because Warforged, they had a whole regular healing works. Just for simplicity's sake, they made regular healing works on them. Because the idea is they do have organic parts.
Oh,
yeah, they're not purely mechanical. They have organic parts mixed in.
And I'm thinking now, do they have the whole thing, Reborn and Undead Warlock thing, where, they don't eat or breathe? Or...
I think so.
I think with
I know they don't
Grievous...
need to sleep, because I'll meme about it.
Yeah.
So I'm meme about, the Warforged...
To be a Warforged.
The Warforged and the elf staring at each other at night while everyone else sleeps.
Because you could do a thing with Grievous, actually, where you could be but he doesn't have that because he has organs. Yeah. So, in order to gain balance him, I'm going to give him all these ridiculous combat powers.
Yeah.
That's game balance.
So I think stat block-wise, I would probably use the Lord of Blades if there's a Lord of Blades stat block. So I'm not going to say for sure there is, but I think there is. And in the fiction, it's just, once again, that he is this sort of fusion of the two. That he is the fusion of the Kaminoan biohacking, flesh golem, Lamortia-ing, and the Confederacy, war machines churning out these mechanical soldiers.
Cool. Guys, if you have Tom's Eberron Minute on your bingo card, I give you permission to check it off even if we don't have a literal Tom's Eberron Minute. Thank you, Dusty, for making the bingo cards.
Indeed, as always. And then finally, one more sort of faction region we're going to talk about is the neutral systems. And the idea that, yes, we have about half, notice that important qualifier, about, that there are a number of neutral systems that are not on either side, neutral islands in this case. And this is important, I think, for running certain plots that we see in the Clone Wars. And I think they're very fruitful for PCs to be in war stories. And we'll talk more about involving PCs in war stories in the adventure section. But some of them are ideologically neutral. And they just decided for whatever reason not to join either side. And it would be tipping the balance if one joined. So that gives you a very good place to put your PCs to do kind of a Cold War espionage, it's not just battle. You want a much more social, a much more like spy movie type story. It could be something that like they're manipulating things in this neutral system to get them to side with the Confederacy, and you need to go in and either get them to side with the Republic or get them to just stay neutral. And then also you have the other form of neutrality, the non-ideological, more bank accountical kind. And those are the ones who are like the serving both sides, the Switzerlands, the banks, the weapons dealers, the arms manufacturers. You have plenty of these islands that are happy to serve both sides. And the fact that they have that neutrality, do serve both sides, lets them kind of double their profit. Like if you have the big like banking island, and both sides need money and need loans and need credit, and if they were to pick a side, then they'd lose half their customer base. And so that also lets you bring in political manipulation. That also lets you do much more kind of espionage-style stories. And once again, you can look at Wikipedia, you can look at the Clone Wars, you can come up with any number of planets and battles and settings and fortresses and big giant warships that your PCs have to infiltrate and blow up, and just any number of kind of stories you want to do. And let's talk now about what some of those stories might be. Rachel, what do you do with it?
Dread possibilities. As mentioned, I paid for my passage through the Stellar Archipelago by promising to assist Dr. Aphra in retrieving an artifact of dubious legal provenance for a buyer. The artifact was located on the remote Outer Rim island of Dathomir, but Dooku had apparently had extensive dealings with Dathomir in the past, and a map of the island was stored in a separatist vault. Aphra was adamant that we retrieve the map before attempting the job, for Dathomir is home to enough dangers that to wander aimlessly through its swamps and jungles is to invite a variety of colorful and unpleasant deaths. So we traveled to the barren, rocky island of Geonosis to recover the map. As rich in mineral resources as it is devoid of arable land, Geonosis is the beating heart of the Confederacy's Warforged production, with hives of Thrykeen nesting in the caverns that honeycomb its mountains. We were able to gain access to the island without much difficulty, as supply ships constantly travel to and from its foundries. Locating and breaking into the vault itself was more challenging, largely because of the amount of time we spent dissuading Aphra's auto-gnome companion from solving every problem with explosives, but we eventually accessed the vault. I relate this not because I believe my patron has a particular interest in either maps of Dathomir or my methods of acquiring them, but because of what else I found in the vault. While my companion searched for the map, I used Eldritch Sight and found a secret compartment protected by a glyph of warding. Of course, this compartment was begging to be opened, so I dispelled the glyph and set to examining the compartment's contents. It was clear from a few moments of study that it belonged to Count Dooku and was used for items too sensitive for the Geonosian's eyes. While the journal within used a cipher that I was unable to decrypt, although I have enclosed it, as I have no intention of being anywhere near the Midrim when he discovers its theft, I also found various arcane writings related to the summoning and binding of fiends, with the name of a specific archdevil, Sidious. It seems that Dooku has, in fact, formed some sort of infernal pact. It is unsurprising that the Confederacy has taken a path so counter to the one he envisioned, for such bargains tend to grant only the illusion of one's desires.
I want adventure in the great wide somewhere.
I want it more than I can tell.
So what brought your PCs not only to Star Wars land, but to this particular zone of Star Wars land? And as we said, the core genre we're doing here is war story.
Yes.
And war stories, it's have a slept-on genre, slept-on place for sort of D&D stories, but it does actually give you a lot of space to have random heavily armed transients.
Yes, absolutely.
Because both sides hire mercenaries. Both sides hire assassins and bounty hunters. And once again, this is even in the Clone Wars. In the Clone Wars show, you will find both sides hiring bounty hunters, assassins, mercenaries, because both sides want plausible deniability.
Absolutely.
And disposable assets. And in terms of wider Ravenloft stuff, We mentioned Lamortia, we mentioned Victra Mordenheim, we mentioned Warforged Eberron. We could say there's a lot of like cutting edge research being done.
Absolutely.
Here. That if you have like a Warforged PC or a Reborn PC, you are absolutely set. Like whatever they're breaking down, they need to be fixed, they need to be upgraded, whatever. This is the place to come.
You could have, we were talking about this, and you had the whole idea of like maybe there's a Reborn PC that wanted to leave their like backstory kind of up in the air where they came from, and maybe they find out that they're from the Bad Batch.
They find out they're a clone trooper, like with Amnesia. Like they go and there's this entire army and everyone has their face, and like how amazing, would cool would that be? That they were a clone trooper basically.
Make sure your player likes Star Wars or they are going to punch you.
And of course, the best reason for any group of heavily armed transients PCs to go anywhere,
trade caravans.
There are lots of resources needed. Both sides are these great war machines, and those machines need to be fed hundreds of different things every minute of every day. It even is a specific place for heavily armed transients, type of trade caravans, because the idea is that they need smugglers.
Yes.
That in some places there are blockades or there are shortages, and they need people to bring these resources to their war machine that they can't get through the normal commercial means.
And if you have a very altruistic party, right, if it's more, we've talked about the pulling purse strings versus pulling heartstrings. If you have the pulling heartstrings kind of party, there are going to be blockades that are stopping people from getting their medicines, that are stopping starving planets from getting their food. So, like, this can absolutely not be supporting the war machine. This can be a mission of mercy to help some poor planet that's being blockaded by the greedy Trade Federation.
Absolutely, yes. And so, if you have, and I think this is something that this setting lends itself to, and it is a fantastic campaign premise, if you have PCs and they have a ship or an airship, and they're just kind of doing a Han Solo or a Firefly and just kind of going from job to job to job. There's so many jobs. Group of heavily armed, slightly morally flexible people or altruistic people could have here. And of course, there is always a possibility you were trying to go to another Star Wars domain, you ended up here, which is a great thing.
And that's a possibility with any domain, right? I mean, it's a possibility you could be trying to go to Barovia and you ended up here.
Right.
But, like, since we're having the Star Wars domains be, like, existing together in the mists, but also it's weird and wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, and things don't quite work out. Like, imagine, like, that you're trying to get to Andor, right? Yes. You're trying to play Andor, and you go into the mist, like, expecting that you're gonna come out and have scenes with Mon Mothma, and instead you emerge in the Clone Wars. Like, how weird is that going to be? And you just dropping that timey-wimey geographical weirdness in your player's laps.
So lots of ways to get your PCs here. And then the great thing is, as we said, once they're here, the fact that this is a setting at war gives you so many story possibilities to do. Now, Ravenloft does have the stasis, that works here, but it also kind of works with that idea of the war movie. You don't have a lot of war movies where they, like, kill Hitler and end the war.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's hundreds of movies about World War II, and even movies about groups of heavily armed transients doing missions in World War II. And they don't win the war.
You're saving Private Plo Koon.
Exactly.
It's Master Plo Koon's cousin.
And same thing with Clone Wars. Like, there's no Clone Wars episode where they're, like, winning the Clone Wars. But just like with
no
Clone
one wins the Clone Wars. Except
the Empire. The Empire won the Clone Wars. There's an episode of Rebels about it. But the great thing is you can draw from those for inspiration for, like, no, we made things better. We shifted the Clone Wars. And the Clone Wars is, really works for Ravenloft in our case. It's this deliberately maintained status quo.
Yes.
Like the core horror of the two leaders of the warring factions are working together to make sure nobody gets ahead. To make sure the war doesn't end.
Yeah.
So they can do this thing and it'll maintain the status quo. And even maintaining the status quo is a victory. Like stopping the other side from advancing is a victory. Stopping the other side from getting a victory is a victory. And as we said, there are so many reasons to bring in PCs. I can kind of see average PC group fitting two roles. And one is a, like, special forces type because that's a nice, like, they're not just with a bunch of 100 other fighters being sent into a big wave of attack. They're given, like, specific missions. In Star Wars term, this is like your ARC troopers, but in just general war movies, this is like your special forces things, your SEAL Team 6. They're like a small group given a very specific mission and then given a lot of autonomy. Or once again, for sort of more amoral ones, or if you want to have your Outlanders, it could be mercenaries.
Yes.
The equivalent of, a group of mercenaries. And if they are either from this setting or are more moral, they might get pulled in purely for trying to help the sort of good guys of this war win battle.
Those missions of mercy.
Exactly. If they're more mercenary, more amoral, then there's also a very good backdrop for profit.
Yes.
So you run something like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where it's like the Civil War is happening, but they find out there's this, like, treasure ship that crashed, and they're just trying to, like, get to that treasure ship, and the war is the backdrop of that profit-seeking quest.
Yeah.
And then finally, in terms of running a war adventure, it should involve battles, and the battles should be like these major set pieces.
Yeah.
I remember it was a 3rd edition book about using War Store that had a lot of really cool ideas. And one was the idea that, like, the battle is the dungeon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that, like, the DM has a timeline of the overall battle.
Oh, uh-huh.
And then they have, all right, here's the first thing the PCs are going to be tasked to be doing, and then here's how it's going to influence what happens next if they succeed or fail.
That's really smart, because battles have so many moving parts.
Exactly.
And this idea of, like, there are a gazillion NPCs, and then there are your PCs.
Yeah.
If you try and play it like that, it's going to be tedious.
Yeah, and, like, there are various mass combat rules. I'm sure if you do a quick Google, you will find people who have done mass combat rules for 5th edition. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There's no official WotC, as far as I know, sources for those. I believe DevCon, our Adventurers League archivist, has said that
Hi, DevCon.
There's an Adventurers League adventure that had mass combat rules of all things, but there's not, like, an official published supplement. But you could do it as, like, okay, here are these guns on these hill. Our mission is to get the guns on the hill and, like, spike them. And if we fail in that by X point, then there's going to be this bad thing happening. If we succeed, this good thing will happen, and we're able to land our troops. And then they're, like, aerial attack and blah, blah, blah. And, like, kind of having the, like, flow chart, and each one has to, like, do we succeed or not?
Yeah, just kind of like that you're one part of the overall battle, and, like, focusing on your part and how does that impact the, almost like gaining or losing influence. Valkyrie or whatever, but it's gaining or losing influence for the battle. Yeah, that's
and then
cool.
even
like
using,
that.
I remember this, it had a sort of victory points, and the whole, like, okay, do you succeed in spiking the guns by, like, 10 minutes? Yes, you get this many victory points. No,
nice,
you don't you don't. Okay, do you do this? Then you get this many victory points. And then that kind of being a big thing to determine the outcome of the battle. Maybe you have a story that is happening in the middle of a battle. Maybe the PCs are primarily fighting the battle and trying to win. But that's like a framework, or once again, it's almost like a dungeon.
Right.
Because they're moving from space to space, but with, like, chronological events.
Like, it's like, I'm thinking of it now as you're saying that, like, almost the battle's an environmental hazard.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is the 4-5e. It's not a mass combat system as far as I know. But the Dragonlance supplement they did for 5e, it was an adventure, and it kind of was a couple of the sort of parts of the adventure were set during battles. And they would have, like, okay, here's what your PCs are doing in this battle against the Dragon Army. But here are the, like, chart of random events that are, like, happening as they are doing their particular small part of the Dragon Army. So those are our basic ideas for a kind of Clone Wars / war-based adventures you can start your PCs to. And Clone Wars was a show that was very popular with children, 10-year-olds. I was a substitute teacher, and there were many, many Clone Wars loving 10-year-olds. But it was many, many years ago, and now many of those Clone Wars loving 10-year-olds have grown up into adults. So let's talk about adapting this for a younger audience, a older audience, running a Clone Wars set, Star Wars, Ravenloft, what a lot of modifiers game. So, in terms of aging out, in terms of running a game, pitch that original sort of age demographic of the Clone Wars cartoon, which we're drawing so much from.
Which I would be delighted if any children are still watching the Clone Wars cartoon. That'd be great.
The baseline, there's very little you need to do, because just taking that Clone Wars cartoon as your big inspiration, that'll give you a lot of what you need, because a lot of the baseline assumptions of like how you handle violence, how much like brutality there is, a lot of the baseline assumptions of D&D, especially in 5th edition, is I think basically what you get in the Clone Wars show. And especially the earlier seasons. And there's kind of 2 tones Clone Wars can take. And the first is our aging down tone, which we see in the early seasons a lot. And that is the kind of like heroic band of brothers, like crazy sci-fi movie, World War II movie type setting. And that's just like the clones are. They're heroes, the Jedi are heroes, the Separatists are evil, they fight them. There's just a lot of killing battle droids, very, very rare for a clone to die, and even rarer for a named clone to die. And I think, yes, that was specifically kind of targeted at a younger audience to be this kind of war show that'll be okay for them to do. So similarly, a lot of that would be a war campaign that's okay for your younger PCs to do. But what about that second mode Clone Wars takes in the later seasons that is much more aging up?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to need to skip ahead warning. We'll see. Future Rachel might come in and make me eat my words. I think that we're going to be talking a lot in generalities here. Right. So, but we'll see. So, yeah, later Clone Wars, super dark, conspiracies on top of conspiracies. Like, everyone's being manipulated. Everyone's disposable. All of this is for nothing. Like, this isn't even like, a Strahd's War against Azulon thing where you're trying to decide which butthole is going to win. This is like, no, both buttholes are going to win. Yeah. Except that only one of them is going to win because he's going to kill Dooku. But still, it's like, this whole thing is pointless, and you can play into the horror of that, and it's awful. Since we're drawing from war movies, there's a ton of, like, very adult, very bleak war movie stuff you could draw on, like including the futility and pointlessness. Like you have later seasons of Clone Wars and also Andor in the notes here. It can get real Saw Gerrera up in here. Again, I'm really going to be talking in generalities here because this isn't a genre that I'm super into because it's too real. But like, one thing that came to mind immediately for me was in Ahsoka, the live-action Ahsoka show, we got to see how young Ahsoka actually was. Yeah. Like, you could have some child soldier stuff. Yeah. And if you're combining that with, like, all of this horrible, Clone Wars stuff we have going on, there's a domain that you're going to be hearing more about in a minute, Tovag, which was Cast the Betrayer's domain. And it was in this constant war with Vecna's domain, and it was this whole basically, like, all the people pretty much aged in dog years, so they could get them aged up for his army faster. You could do something horrible with that, with like kind of really playing up that the clone vats, if they're speeding things up, these are chronologically children. Yeah, like emotionally, mentally, intellectually, they're like 12-year-olds. Yeah. And that's the thing. You've got Clone Wars, on the one hand, it's George Lucas wanting to do his big epic sci-fi World War II. So any, of the kind of heroic World War II movies that George Lucas grew up with, you could adapt those. But then it also fundamentally is this bleak, cynical conspiracy theory, like those sort of, later 60s into 70s kind of war movies, and really emphasizing the sort of war is hell type thing. Is absolutely also a thing you could draw on and do in Clone Wars. Yeah. It had, like, the very short Clone Wars series, the Jenny Tartar... I never pronounced his name right. Yeah,
the micro-series.
The micro-series. That had, like, awful body horror experiments going on. You could do something like that. Just, there's a lot of room here for, like, really big, colorful, horrible nastiness.
There is one final note about aging up. Definitely don't use battles. No, don't have any of these like goofy chicken guys going Roger, Roger,
Roger, Roger.
Like this is, you could even see in the Clone Wars show, as they got into the kind of later, darker seasons, they would introduce these kind of more serious, scary, legitimate threat battle droids. Like the commando droids are like just like awesome, and sending these just silent gymnast ninja droids against your PCs are going to be a legit threat even for an adult group.
So the one other AU we have here, I'm going to take point on this because this was kind of my baby.
Yes, I love this idea.
Thank you. Because though I mentioned earlier, I hadn't really watched Clone Wars before we started preparing for this. I'd seen like 3 episodes of Clone Wars before we started preparing for this episode. So when I think of Count Dooku, I think of Attack of the Clones. And the whole that Attack of the Clones is this noir conspiracy unraveling what's going on. And if you like the idea of doing something with Dooku, but you're not taken with the war genre, or, again, you haven't seen a whole lot of the Clone Wars series, or maybe you weren't a big fan of the Clone Wars series, there is something very interesting with the Dooku hasn't been discovered yet, and you're unraveling who the secret Sith who summoned Palpatine, the archdevil, is. And in that case, of course, your PCs know it's Dooku. So in that case, you're going to want to have it not be Dooku.
Yes.
You're going to, like pick a Jedi. That's the Jedi who's the darklord here, and they're the ones who basically have Count Dooku's whole backstory and summon Palpatine. So, they're trying to figure out who's the one who's, the shady power behind the throne, helping out the separatists and everything. And, of course, they're going straight for Christopher Lee. But it's actually Kit Fisto.
I don't know what you mean.
I love democracy. I love the Senate. It's Agent Kohler who shares our last name.
So he can be your guy.
Yes. So, and that would be a really fun thing to bring in your PCs. And that would be much more the paranoia and the conspiracy theory. Since whoever the Dark Lord is still in the Jedi Council working behind the scenes, maybe he's winning people over. Maybe you've got there was just one Sith to begin with, but he's starting to kind of win other Jedi over to his cause. And some of them are just being won over to the separatist cause in general, but maybe a couple of them are dark side did nothing wrong, ? And so you could do some really interesting, this spreading disease within the Jedi Council, and that could be super fun.
Or even in this wider political story, and it actually does kind of be a classical Dungeons and Dragons of you kind of have an equivalent of episode 1. You have this kind of minor political skirmish that the PCs come in and resolve.
Yes.
But there's these kind of mysterious, wait, who were those, red-bladed warriors who didn't seem connected to the Trade Federation at all, but were helping them? And then, what is this kind of wider conspiracy unfolding? You just got a very...
oh my gosh. Because I was just thinking, though, on the one hand... if you're coming in during episode 1, you could do a similar thing of the Palpatine's not actually the bad guy, but on the other hand, it's so set that he's Emperor Palpatine, he's the guy. But we have this whole he's this archdevil came in. What if there was just a regular guy who was Senator Sheev Palpatine?
Nice.
And he was just a normal person, and then the archdevil killed him and replaced him.
Love it.
And so he's just a dude. Sheev Palpatine in Phantom Menace is just a dude. And maybe somebody else is the archdevil for a while, and then he kills and replaces Palpatine later on, while your PCs are there even, and then he is the Senate.
But yeah, in this case, it's, once again, if there's an Eberron minute, then it'll go here in the next bit. But this is very much the vibe of the Eberron canon setting. Of this is a setting on the edge of war. There are these powerful forces moving behind the scenes, and these tensions in the setting which could be exploited. And so that'd be a really interesting, really fruitful place to put your PCs.
Yeah.
To kind of have them as the heroes of episode 1, and then going into episode 2 and investigating these wider conspiracies, and that being the story you're telling with them.
Yeah. Spoilers for genre of horror that I didn't pick either of these for genre of horror. But if you're listening to this and you really want to run a psychological horror and occult investigation game, this is the way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Especially because you have that kind of dark side magic edge to it. It very much could be no, we're not just investigating a political conspiracy. We're investigating an infernal cult.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
that is
I want to run this
manipulating the power. That is running a political conspiracy. Absolutely a cult investigation.
Yeah. Political conspiracy games are much more my jam than war games. So
yes.
Yes, this
that
forever.
Sounds cool. Even you think it's a political conspiracy and discover it's actually an infernal cult behind the conspiracy.
Oh, and since we're doing non-clone things, you could have them find whatever the heck you want on Camino. It could be
So, that is our suggestions for the original audience for Clone Wars, for the current nostalgia audience for Clone Wars, and for the Eberron-affiliated audience for Clone Wars. And now let's give you our parting thoughts on our Clone Wars Count Dooku setting in a section we like to call
Parting Thoughts.
So the first thing I'd like to do in the parting thoughts section is Rachel just kind of mention a little bit of a spoiler, and that is the genres of horror. And this is from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. This goes through different genres of horror, talks about their signifiers, like monsters. It's really useful. Genres of horror for the different domains to help you guide the evoking that horror for that domain. So you said what you were not going to do.
Yes, I'm curious. Did you have psychological? Because there is a possibility of psychological.
I was thinking psychological horror because in the Clone Wars show, some of the most horror-adjacent ones are kind of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
The whole, like, Fives conspiracy thriller arc. And it does have some more classic horror with, like, zombie parasites on Geonosis, but like the ones that really feel Clone Wars, not just like Ahsoka meets a boogeyman.
Right, or like Night Sisters.
Doing zombie witches. But like really like in this setting, and core to the Clone Wars is the kind of, it's a conspiracy thriller. It is a, you don't know who to trust. You don't know who's a betrayer. You don't know who's a double agent.
Right.
So that was my thought. What are you thinking?
I was thinking disaster horror.
Oh, I love that.
Because I feel like so much of the horror here is the devastation.
Yeah.
And even like a lot of the disaster horror tropes are also horror of war tropes. Kind of the idea of humanity is the real monster, and we're making the hard choices and all that other stuff.
Oh,
so
you're
like
so
that's
right.
right
Disaster
where my
horror
mind
is
went.
a brilliant thought.
Thank you.
So yeah, disaster horror, psychological horror.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the next part of our outline is actually blank, because I know this was normally a part you handle, and it was a incredible challenge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And that is any way of incorporating older 2nd edition, 3rd edition Ravenloft canon material into the setting.
Dear listeners, I finally came up with something to put in this spot yesterday.
Yeah, you have never been this stumped before.
I've never been this stumped before.
Normally we sit down, we're going through the script outline, and you just like jump in, and maybe you'll add stuff later, but you always have something in that initial go through. And this is just like nothing.
And the biggest thing here is the fact that it's a shadow war. Because I could come up with a gazillion war domains. Like, Falkovnia is war, and more war. We mentioned Strahd and Aslan having their war against each other. We mentioned Cass and Vecna, and, Cavadis and Tovag. And there were, but those are all real wars.
Yes.
And so much of the horror here is that it isn't a real war. And so it felt like a lot of the vibe of those domains, because like a lot of the horror there was that you're, being thrown away on the whim of this warlord and everything, but that warlord actually wants to win their war. And so it didn't feel like the same vibe. But then, yesterday, finally, dear listeners, this is our 3rd recording session. Yeah. If we had gotten this far in the first 2 recording sessions.
I got nothing. Would have had to maybe come in and insert it later.
Future Rachel would have had to pop in. But and this is going to be a surprise for Tom.
Yeah,
because I was like, I'm going to surprise you on Mike. Because we've mentioned in a couple previous episodes that I appreciate the ecological niche that Old Falkovnia occupied, but I never enjoyed Old Falkovnia because it was the man's inhumanity to man fascism domain, and that was way too real for me even before 2016. It is way, way, way too real for me now. But there was, in my most recent Ravenloft game, I was looking through the Gazetteer that had Falkovnia in it, and I saw a couple things that made me go, oh, but that's cool though. Oh, but if I were to run a Falkovnia arc, then this is what I would do. And then I ended up running a Falkovnia arc, of course. And the thing that was really interesting, and that we keep coming back to when we're talking about this, is the big Isengard energy and the environmental devastation. Because one of the things with Falkovnia is, like, Falkovnia is very naturally beautiful. Like, there are these gorgeous, pristine mountains and these amazing, like, tracts of forest. And we mentioned in our Snow White episode that you could put the Queenswood right next to Falkovnia. It would fit right in because you've got all of that, like, beautiful black forest, everything. But all of it is going to feed Drekhov's war machine. He's got all of these, captured prisoners who are being forced to do, like, working in the mines and working in the, the lumber yards and, like, tearing down the trees and just, like, strip mining the mountains. And there were a ton of nature spirits in Falcovnia, and they're super mad. So you could, if you wanted to bring in more fantasy and more D&D, and again, specifically like an ecological horror aspect of D&D, you could have it be that all this stuff that Dooku and Palpatine are doing to get this war machine going is really ticking off some of the dryads on some of these islands, is really ticking off some of the naiads and the tritons and the elementals in these oceans, and that, like, you actually have nature rising up against them as kind of your third faction, and your druid is going to have so much fun here.
That's very cool.
Thank you. That's all I got, guys.
That's all I got.
but it's fun.
I was thinking.
Uh-huh. Oh, you have one?
Just going off of you. Because you were like, oh, it's all about the environmental destruction and like sort of the idea of the shadow war. And it was like, what if that was the point of the war machine?
Oh.
Like, the point of the war machine is to kill the dryads and the nature spirits.
Oh, that's
and, like,
interesting.
they don't actually care about winning the political struggle. It's they've created this war as an excuse to build these two war machines to like, destroy nature.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I'm not sure exactly what your motivation would be for these, like, Sith Lord guys to destroy nature. But it'd be a heck of a plot twist reveal.
It might even be that, like, whatever original world this archipelago came from had very powerful nature spirits, and Palpatine knows that he has to take them out before he's going to take over.
Right. Or you bring in, like, sort of nature gods. Like, they're trying to sort of, like, take out these nature gods.
Yeah, and then, like, maybe you even could have that, like, like, this whole, the Jedi were originally druids.
Oh, yeah.
They were originally this, like, lawful order of druids.
Yes.
And then kind of
like, balance. The whole thing was maintaining balance between kind of civilization and nature.
But they forgot the nature part of things. And, like, they forgot all their druidic stuff. It was all more about, like, you know, balance with people and, like, really focusing on, like, political law rather than, you know, the idea of, like, balance law. And,
that's really,
even that they've lost their way, and that part of your PC's overall mission in the Star Wars archipelago, everything, is going to be to kind of bring the true and even with the Force, because the Force holds all living things together. They should be druids. They should be druids.
Wow, this is all working.
Yes.
Hey, look at us.
I need to leave this section blank more often.
So, yes, we found some really interesting ideas to explore with some of that, bringing that Falcovnia energy that you brought in. So, yay, go us.
Woohoo! Just, imagine you find the ancient Jedi temples, and it's all this druidic stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can even have, like, with the Night Sisters, they're like, no, we're the ones who are keeping the true.
Yeah, the
like,
true, yeah.
No, they're not, but at least they're still connected with nature. Like...
So, the last thing I'd like to talk about in the parting thoughts section is the strengths and challenges of running an adventure in this domain. And to be clear, once again, if you listen to our May the 4th prologue, then that is where we talked about the strengths and challenges of Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
So this section for each of the episodes is going to be the strengths and challenges of specifically Clone Wars.
We're not going to talk about the fact here that lightning bolt means something very different in D&D than it does in Star Wars. That was going to be the 4th episode.
Or that, like, 5th edition combat is really not suited for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, strengths of Clone Wars specifically. Clone Wars is a pulp action fantasy war, and that fits D&D very well. Like, this is, if you wanted to do a D&D war story, this is one where a lot of the tone and a lot of the just, like, the way things unfold fits D&D very well. And that also gives a strong identity and flavor. Like, if you're like, the Kingdom of Bluthar is fighting the Duchy of Laptop, and you need to get pulled into that. Like, this...
It's like a looking around, and the first thing you see is the name of the duchy.
Yes.
Duchy of Laptop and the Kingdom of Salt Shaker.
Salt Shaker. Are battling for control of the Trivet Mountains. And their valuable resources of keeping food hot. But, like, yeah, to care about a war story, you kind of have to be somewhat invested in the war. And this is one that's super easy because, once again, 99% of the people playing Dungeons & Dragons do have that kind of emotional in of, like, okay, we get what this war is, we get what it's about, we have, like, some kind of connection to it.
Yeah.
And they're going, for the Republic! That's much more meaningful than for the Duchy of Salt Shaker. This is because we have all these Jedi, this is kind of a good high magic setting for like a Star Wars. You know, you could have a party of all Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's fine. This setting supports that. You can have as much Jediing around. You don't have that constant, like, oh, do I use the Force now or I got reported to the Inquisition? It's like, no, just go crazy. Use the Force. Lightsaber.
And the D&D version of this, because, you know, you're probably not going to be playing Jedi if you're bopping over from Barovia. The D&D version of this would be using magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you can just use magic openly and it's no problem.
You don't have to be like, is this going to be like a thing if I cast magic missile right now? And you don't have to worry about that here. This does let you do those two tones, which either of those and both of those can be really rewarding. Your classic Band of Brothers, heroic war stories, you know, World War II movies starring John Wayne, and your, like, cynical, futile, more than any other war imaginable. This one is just a machine chewing people up. This is a pointless machine of death.
You're born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, you're Vietnam stuff.
Yeah.
And finally, I think there's a really fruitful core dilemma of the setting, which is that, like, the Separatists are basically right about what's wrong with the Republic, but wrong about how to fix it.
Yeah.
And they're making everything worse.
Because this was a thing that you pointed out to me that from the opening crawl of episode 3 that has apparently come up multiple times in Star Wars fandom.
Right. In episode 3, it's like, war! Like, the separate war, the Clone Wars rages, the Separatists, something. And then once it's weirdly like an important piece of canon in Star Wars. The opening crawl for episode 3 has the line, there are heroes on both sides. So it's like, no, as a matter of official Star Wars narrative canon, you have to say there are heroic Separatists. There are heroes on both sides. So there's a lot of, I think, interesting stories to throw at your PCs, especially even maybe meeting some of these, like, heroic Separatists.
Yeah.
What about challenges? And there certainly are plenty.
This, you know, for all that we tried to find all of the war story horror here, and again, maybe this is just because I don't like war stories, and so I'm not as versed in all the horror potential of war stories, but to me, of all of our Star Wars settings, this was the least horror. Like, this is a really fun D&D setting.
Yeah.
I'm still not sold on it as a Ravenloft setting.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more sold on it now that we're talking about this whole, like, druids who have lost their way and, you know, getting into the environmental horror. That's getting me more excited. No one cares about Dooku. There's one YouTuber you watch who cares about Dooku.
Yeah.
Right? There's that one guy,
that
and
one history guy,
Lee, care about Dooku. But, like, there's stuff about him in Tales of the Jedi that makes him compelling, but, like, unless you've got real hardcore Star Wars fan players, they're gonna be like, we're playing in a Star Wars domain and our darklord is Dooku? Is this a joke?
Yes. Every other one of these villains we're going to look at, I think, has a bigger emotional hook.
Yes.
An emotional, like, 100%, impact than Dooku does.
You know, I'm excited about all the other 3. Dooku, I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Let's get through this box.
And then this could be a strength or a challenge.
Yes.
That people who just know the movies, or, you know, who only know some of the shows, they might not know the Clone Wars show. And the strength there is that you can rip off entire plot lines.
You never need to plan this. You never need to plan an adventure.
Yeah, you
have 7 seasons of adventures to pillage.
Just be like, oh look, Maul's taking over Mandalore. Go. But, like, that also means, again, there's not the buy-in. Like, part of, I was saying to Tom, like, as of this recording, we have recorded but not yet edited the Repo the Genetic Opera bonus episode that you guys voted for the fundraiser. You can probably guess there was a very large enthusiasm gap for that movie. For our, we have a goth musical theater nerd and a...
Not those
things. There was a very large enthusiasm gap in this episode, and I feel like this is the exact same enthusiasm gap, but reversed. Because I haven't seen Clone Wars and I only just watched Tales of the Jedi in preparation for this episode. And if that's the case with your party, then, you know, they're not going to know any of these cool plots that you're throwing at them, but they also might not care about them.
But they're not going to care about who Plo Koon is.
Yes.
Like, oh no, Plo Koon's in trouble. We have to help him. Huh? Oh no, it's General Grievous. That guy, that robot guy.
The wheezy droid.
The wheezy droid that Obi-Wan blew up. So, Lots of strength, lots of challenges. We did our very best to sort of present this as a compelling Ravenloft domain and a compelling setting. You could put your PCs in for some compelling stories. But if you have any suggestions about horror elements that might be present in the Clone Wars domain that we did not foreground or notice, how could they reach out to us?
Well, you can email us at wonderfulworldofdarklords@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Tumblr, or Patreon at Wonderful World of Dark Lords. And on YouTube, we are just Wonderful World of Dark Lord.
And if you like how we did our best to adapt Clone Wars into a D&D-able setting, a Ravenloft setting, a horror setting, then you might enjoy on DM's Guild. You can follow the, more by this author with the link to the free write-up for this domain. You will see I've done some horror movies and some other movies that some Disney-related I've adapted into adventures.
Do any of them have Christopher Lee in them?
No.
You need to fix
not
that.
Yet. Yes, I do. If you like our consideration for that original audience of the Clone Wars cartoon, that theoretical table of 10-year-olds, we also have some resources on DM's Guild for running more horror, spooky themed stuff for younger players.
And then speaking of spooky things for young people, I have a picture book, Mother Ghost, Nursery Rhymes for Little Monsters. Exactly what it sounds like. 13 classic nursery rhymes written to be about Halloween. I also have some short stories for adults, many of which are available for free on my website, www.rachelkohler.com.
Until next time, we'll continue our journey through this galaxy far, far away. Thank you for listening. Happy gaming.
And may the Force be with you. Parting thoughts. I was unable to gain access to Dooku himself, which is no surprise. An easily accessible rebel leader is an easily assassinated rebel leader. His story, however, is that of so many other revolutionaries who attempts to usher in a new era that promises to be even more oppressive than the one before. An empty, joyless victory that doubtless delights his infernal patron. If Palpatine is, in fact, the tyrant of the Imperium as well as the Chancellor of the Republic, he may even have made his own bargain with Sidious for that power, making the whole of this barbarous war nothing more than the fiendish equivalent of a child playing with toy soldiers. I'm not looking forward to visiting the next region of the Stellar Archipelago, but I am relieved to leave Geonosis specifically, as I have gotten rocks and sand in nearly every article of clothing I own. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. I hope that on the next island we visit, everything's soft and smooth. Regards, D.
Wars fought between the rulers of these misty realms are often fruitless. Drakov's abysmal attempts against Darkon do little more than provide me with additional zombies I may utilize in the defense of my people, though I would hardly equate my continual swatting away of this willfully ignorant fly as war, even if the little mercenary insists upon it. Civil wars are more commonplace, but despite the persistent efforts of those involved, it is the nature of these lands to remain stagnant. It is a rare event indeed, in which a conflict changes anything of note. The Artificer Wars are no different. The Confederacy is as corrupt as the Republic it rebels against. The Jedi are too secure in their own self-righteous perspective and power to uncover the true influence behind their own actions, resulting in their ranks often turning a blind eye to the Republic's corruption. It is no coincidence that Dooku left the Jedi Council after a particularly brutal conflict. No doubt he discovered a grain of that truth. Count Dooku's story is hardly unique. He sought perfection and purity in a world where no such sanctity exists. Instead, he discovered the rot at the core of the Jedi Creed and sought nobler methods to achieve his desires. Perhaps if he had let his emotions cool before acting, he would not have summoned an infernal entity to aid his cause. I have no doubt that his rash actions will lead to his ultimate downfall. When summoning an infernal entity, one must exhibit extreme caution. It is the nature of fiends to deceive and seduce until the servant becomes the master.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Azalin Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at darklordazalin. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.